When Donald Trump and Benjamin Netanyahu declared peace in our time on Monday, everyone knew it was a charade. What we didn't know then was how much the text of the agreement had changed from when it had been approved by the leaders and foreign ministers of 8 Arab and Muslim states in the United Nations, and when it was announced a few days later in Washington. So Turkey and Qatar, who were part of the show, can claim they were duped. But that's a charitable way of reading what they have done. Betrayal is another word that comes to mind. A betrayal performed as a genocide is in full motion and which Netanyahu has been given a green light to continue. The Qataris are furious that they were written out of the mediation role, and Trump refused to delay the announcement. It has since been restored. The Egyptians too are furious that the role of the Palestinian Authority has been downgraded and that Israeli forces will remain in Rafah and along the border with Sinai. But the names of each country are still on the statement, welcoming the plan, and neither have withdrawn from it, and both are now arm-twisting Hamas to sign up to it. Either way, each of the 8 regional nations that backed this agreement is serving the people of Gaza a bitter and bleak reward for 2 years of enduring the worst military onslaught in the history of this conflict. For Palestinians in Gaza, there is to be no light at the end of the tunnel, only a different form of occupation and a different form of siege. Just at that point in history, when world opinion has turned against Israel, and just as more countries than ever have recognized a Palestinian state, Arab and Muslim leaders have signed up to a plan that ensures a viable state can never emerge from the rubble of Israel's vengeance. Turkey can claim it stopped the mass ethnic cleansing of Gaza and brought UN agencies back into Gaza. The United Arab Emirates can claim it stopped Israel's annexation of the West Bank. But both have handed the keys to these issues to Netanyahu. There's no guarantee that they have stopped ethnic cleansing and genocide, because under this agreement, Israeli forces are not leaving the Strip. Netanyahu is the one who decides how quickly and how much of Gaza his forces will hand over to the proposed International Stabilization Force. He's free too to decide how much aid and what quality of reconstruction materials he will send in. But there is every guarantee that this post-war plan will stifle at birth a Gaza re-emerging under a Palestinian leadership of any kind. Under this plan, there is no role for any Palestinian leadership in the rebuilding of Gaza. Gaza is split from the occupied West Bank by this agreement, and all thoughts of joining the two have been jettisoned. The PA fares no better than Hamas or the other factions. Already disarmed, the PA has to go much further. Netanyahu demanded at the joint press conference that the PA has to drop its cases against Israel at the International Criminal Court and the International Court of Justice. It has to stop paying the families of slain fighters. It has to change its school curriculum and tame the media. And only then will Israel see if the PA is ready for statehood. None of the 8 leaders, prime ministers or foreign ministers of Turkey, Qatar, Saudi Arabia, the UAE, Jordan, Egypt, Indonesia and Pakistan consulted the Palestinians before agreeing to this plan. Just as the Palestinians have no agency in the authority that's about to be imposed on them in Gaza, they have no say in devising a post-war plan. So where was the Arab counter-plan? It didn't exist. Where was the determination to counter Israel's expanding borders? That too is pure make-believe. Differences between the draft they saw in New York and the final statement cover the time limit for handing over the hostages, the distribution of aid, the number of Palestinian prisoners that would be released, the International Stabilization Force, and the lines to which Israeli forces would withdraw. On each of these issues, Israel's control has been hardened and its commitments lessened between the draft agreement agreed at the UN and the announcement in the White House. But the key ones are a commitment on Israel to allow 600 trucks of aid in a day has been replaced by the words full support, without numbers or specifying what equipment Israel will allow in. A commitment to withdraw from all of Gaza has morphed magically into a withdrawal conditional on disarmament and the maintenance of a security perimeter. All these issues were edited out of the statement by Netanyahu, of course, with the full compliance of Steve Witkoff, Trump's envoy, and Jared Kushner, his son-in-law. So where are we now? We have a ceasefire plan substantially worse than the 7 others that the US agreed to and that it allowed Netanyahu to tear up. According to this plan, Israeli forces will eventually withdraw to the perimeter, but they will never leave the strip of land between Rafah and Sinai, known as the Philadelphia Corridor. And they will only withdraw to these positions if they're convinced Hamas has handed in all its weapons to the new ISF. No wonder Netanyahu had a big smile on his face. Netanyahu was asked afterwards if he agreed to a Palestinian state. He replied, "Absolutely not. It's not written into the agreement, and there's one thing we did say. We would strongly oppose a Palestinian state." President Trump also said it. He says he understands it. Netanyahu is being truthful for once. The last of the 20 points merely says that the United States will establish a dialogue between Israel and the Palestinians to agree on a political horizon for peaceful and prosperous coexistence. Article 19 only gives the vaguest nod to statehood. It recognizes self-determination as the aspiration of the Palestinian people. Note, not the right. But even that aspiration is contingent on redevelopment advances in Gaza and PA reform faithfully carried out. Who is the arbiter of this process? Why, it's Israel, of course. This did not need the busy hands of Witkoff and Kushner to rewrite. The betrayal of a Palestinian state by those Arab and Muslim leaders who shouted about it for so long was performed long ago. To seal Israel's victory, Tony Blair, the British Prime Minister who invaded Iraq, is back from the dead. No one outside Ramallah has played a bigger role than Blair in keeping Hamas out of a national unity government, which for decades was the only path to deconfliction. In 2006, the year before he became Middle East envoy, Blair sided with the then US President George Bush, rejecting the results of a freely won election, boycotting Hamas and laying the foundation for a siege that would last for 17 years. The quartet's conditions ensured Hamas's exclusion, and now Blair is back again as a member of the Board of Peace. In 2010, after his term as envoy had expired, the Israeli historian Avi Schleim wrote, "Blair's failure to stand up for Palestinian independence is precisely what endears him to the Israeli establishment." These words read as true about Blair today as they did then. The options for Hamas are bleak. The deal before them is substantially worse than the one that Hezbollah accepted, and even that is being violated on a daily basis by Israel. If Hamas surrenders the hostages, it has no guarantees the war will end, and no more levers to ensure the release of Palestinian prisoners. If they reject it, the war continues with Trump's full backing. No one can be surprised by the speed with which Saudi Arabia, the UAE, Jordan and Egypt have folded like a pack of cards in their support for an independent Palestinian state. But Turkey and Qatar are in this too. Together they have betrayed the Palestinians in putting their name to a deal as bad and as one-sided as this. Time and again they were told to be wary about putting any faith in Trump and his envoys, and time and again they've been played by him and his religious Zionist backers. Turkish and Qatari ministers knew the dangers of trying to put the clock back to October the 6th, the day before the Hamas attack, when Saudi Arabia was about to normalize with Israel. After 2 years of genocide, we've ended up with a proposed settlement which is substantially worse than the situation that existed on the 6th of October 2023. Israel has a green light to stay in Gaza, either directly or through proxies like Blair. Settlers will continue to invade Al-Aqsa. Bezalel Smotrich, the far-right finance minister and de facto governor of the West Bank, will continue to build settlements. The West Bank is already annexed in deed, if not in word. This is the same formula tried with the Oslo Accords, but this time it's on steroids. Palestinians can only be allowed to live next to Israel if they put away their flag, cower in the corners of the land settlers have not grabbed, and abandon all plans for an independent state of their own. This is what de-radicalization means. Never have the Palestinians, wherever they live, been more alone. The Arab and Muslim leaders have responded to the bravery and steadfastness that Gaza's Palestinians have shown night and day on their television screens with fear, cowardice and self-interest.